Welcome into Boxing Scene Today here at the ProBox TV studios. Well, John Lennon said it one time. He said, life is all that stuff that happens while you're making other plans. There were plans to make Charlo versus Plant. All they had to do was win their respective fights at 168 pounds, and we know what happens with plans. We'll break it down here in studio. Jimmy Smith alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, also Coach Robert Garcia to break down the technique. It's kind of a good news, bad news thing. And good news, got to start with Chris. Paulie, we'll get to you in a minute with the bad news, all right? Jermall Charlo did what he needed to do against a less than stellar opponent, but after whatever it was, Chris, 550 days off since his previous fight, what did you think of his performance?
Yeah, with Charlo, this whole fight was essentially a setup fight to see if he could get to the starting line, not the finishing line, because the starting line would be actually fighting Caleb Plant. Thomas Lamana was going to be not even a speed bump in the road, and that's exactly how it turned out. Charlo went out there, did what he was supposed to do with an overmatched opponent. Did he look great? No. Did he look good? Sure. Did he show some flashes of the things that we saw on the way up where we're like, man, this guy's something special? The hand position, the perfect technique in all of his punches, the calmness when he's going in for the kill. That was the most impressive thing for me. Is that he had a guy in front of him. He could have tried to get him out of there in 2 rounds. He probably could have, but he took his time. He broke him down. He got behind that fast jab that he's got. His 1-2 is a thing of beauty, but wasn't overly concerned about getting Lamana out of there right away. Broke him down, hurt him over and over and over again. Showed some good poise. For all intents and purposes, I'm impressed with what I saw from Charlo from being out for so long. I think he's a major player at 68.
All right, so Paulie, of course, got to go with the bad news. Paulie, this guy you're supposed to beat. Come on, what are we talking about here? Is that the issue here? Is the level of opposition? Please.
I don't necessarily knock the level of opposition because there's been some time off.
Right.
What I knock is the fact that you were trying to build around this main event, co-main event situation, build this Plant versus Charlo fight for later in the year when, you got guys already early to mid 30s. What are you building? Caleb's already been pretty decently active.
Yeah,
you needed to just get Charlo a win, keep him active because he hadn't fought, like you said, in 550 days. And then you just go with it. You didn't have to do this whole card where we're building up these things. Listen, we've had recently, plans get made and then, fighters get knocked off. We've seen it mostly with Riyadh season for all the criticism we may have had for Riyadh season makes very good fights. And so for that reason, you cannot put the cart ahead of the horse with those kind of matchups. And I've said that before. I was like, Riyadh season likes to make these matchups ahead of time, but yet their setup fights are very, very difficult, which is great for fans because it makes it interesting. But in this PBC card, there wasn't really a lot of interest in these matchups. You were trying to build up Charlo versus Caleb Plant for what? You could just make the fight.
Champ, don't you think that maybe they were doing this because Charlo is such a question mark to see if he can actually get to the fight, like get through a camp, get through a media week, get to that?
I think
because if he was the main event and it wasn't, say Charlo was just going to watch from the sidelines and then Charlo falls out, the whole card goes.
I think you can put them in setup fights, fine. You know what I'm saying? But what I mean is, I also think you could have just made the fight at this point. They're because they're older already, and yeah, Charlo can't get there. If Charlo wouldn't be able to get himself up at 35 years old for a fight with Caleb Plant and get in shape, then okay, then you know what to do with him. But you know what? He did get up. He got up for the fight with Lamana. He showed he was prepared. For me, it's not the same Charlo. For me, Charlo in his prime, Jermall Charlo in his prime, I was picking him to beat Canelo. I remember there was a time when I rated Jermall better than anybody else. You know what I mean? And listen, everybody's time comes and it passes. You know what I mean? And for one reason or another, Jermall's time, I think, especially at his best, it's clear to see that it's past. But he showed some flashes, and he showed enough to keep building. I don't think you needed to just build up the Plant fight. I think you put those guys up against one another. It's a Caleb Plant who still had a little bit left, but he was fading because we saw he got dropped by McCumbee. He struggled a little bit. He has tendency to fade late, but overall, Plant still had the skills, and he'd been mildly active. Jermall had not been active, I get it, but at this point, what are you saving it for?
They're both known quantities.
Yeah, they're both known quantities, and you're not building up to a title fight, for example. You know what I mean? Like, Canelo has those belts at that weight class, and you're not building up to a title fight. Just make the fight.
I think they still can.
They probably may, but you honestly should give Rosendo either Caleb has to rematch Rosendo at this point, or Jermall fights Rosendo. And honestly, if Jermall fights Rosendo, it's another build up in his in his return
Mhm.
to where he wants to be, right? Because it's actually another step to that next level, but it's not a super fight. But yet, it's another step to that next level because now Resendiz has a little bit of a resume. He's knocked off an older Jared Hurd. He's knocked off a less older Caleb Plant. You know, you can think about that. Or you can make the Charlo and Plant fight, but I don't think it's fair to Resendiz either because Resendiz is coming in now.
He might get something bigger, though.
Getting these fights where he's deserving of something else. Either way, what I'm saying is this wasn't a necessary card to set up this fight. Like, just make the fight, dude. I mean, nobody was really interested in these matchups. There was interest in Plant versus Charlo, especially 2 years ago when the slap happened. I thought that was, that would have been like, bad blood. You have a build up, and that's what these things are for. You build it up. Once you let that boat pass, okay, now what are you going to try to rehype it up? You're not going to get any more slaps, I doubt it, so just make the fight. Make the fight already. What are you waiting for? Now, this is the lesson, right? You tried to plan it out. Now what do? Yeah, you might still make it. I mean, listen, I remember the talk about Mayweather and Zeb happening, and then Zeb lost to Baldomir. They still made Mayweather and Zeb. Was it as big? No, but they still made it. So, listen, in boxing, anything's possible.
It's like overcooking a steak.
Overcooking it's no good.
It defeats its own purpose.
It defeats the purpose. Yeah, overcooking it's no good.
Well, let's talk about
Did you want them? Did you want them? Okay, you may still want them.
Then make it.
You're gonna bother me about a steak? You're gonna bother me about a steak?
Look, so let's talk about the tactics. We have Coach Robert Garcia here in the corner. LaManna's coach said, "Oh, he's fighting lazy." He kept saying that he's fighting lazy. He's fighting lazy, and I kept thinking, if he's winning, throwing as Chris says, these tight, accurate punches, not going crazy, why would he do anything more? It was a veteran fight, Coach. How did you see it?
Yeah, no, he fought, with his experience. He's got very great talent. He's a very talented fighter, and his experience really showed there. With the rounds as the rounds went by. But I did see a lot slower Charlo, but still looked good, still looked great, still took care of business. Did what Plant couldn't do. Even though Charlo's the one that's inactive, and Charlo's and Plant is the one that's been a little more active. I think Charlo's the one that did what he had to do, and I give him a lot of credit. Even though yes, maybe he's not the same as he was a few years back, or maybe he's not as fast, maybe he's not as active, with his combination stuff like that. But I think he looked really good, and I think he made himself a big name right there at 168 to challenge any of the top guys.
What I'm curious about, Coach, let's say he showed us, 80% of what he did in his prime. Is an 80% Charlo still a threat to certain guys?
Oh, I definitely. I think he is. He's skilled. He's strong. He has great combinations. Very smart in the ring when it comes to following a game plan. He has that experience. He's up there. He's still. I still consider him one of the top guys at 168. Because he showed it this weekend.
All right, when you look at Caleb Plant, let's go with, of course, the guy who didn't live up to his side of the deal, losing to Jose Armando Resendiz by split decision. I thought that was a terrible decision. I thought it was unanimous. I thought he clearly took, maybe rounds 5 on. But, Chris, let's start with you. This idea that Caleb Plant started out with a good jab, and his coach said, just jab and you can win the whole fight. And I remember thinking, you don't beat a tough Mexican with just that. You got to sting him every now and then. And he never showed the right hand at all. He was a one-handed fighter throughout. Chris, is that how you saw it?
I mean, Caleb Plant is more known for the jab and that left hook. He's got that beautiful left hook. He knocked out Durrell with that insane knockout, that double left hand to the body and the head. He's a super technical guy, but he just couldn't stop the youthful exuberance of Resendiz. And I think we're overlooking Resendiz a little bit. I went into this fight and I wrote an article about it. I said, if Resendiz can make Plant trade with him, he's got a real shot to win. If he can make this a phone booth fight, if he can make this a brawl, he's got a chance. If he allows Plant to just box on the outside, yeah, obviously Plant's going to do what Plant does, and he's going to use that boxing ability, that jab. But Resendiz, I saw him in the fight when he fought Elijah Garcia. Yeah. And that was a great fight, back and forth. Resendiz actually ended up getting stopped late in that fight, but I was really impressed with him regardless. And I think he's coming to his own. I think this is his first fight at 168. He looked good. He looked strong. Plant wasn't able to use his vast experience and speed and quickness to keep him off him. I thought that the kid stayed very, very sharp throughout. He put 12 rounds of focused work. I was really impressed with him in the corner from the young Rosendes. And I think he's a problem now, 168. Did Plant look his best? Absolutely not. Did he look 32 years old? Yeah. And I always say that 32 is really when things start to change. And a guy like Plant, who bases his performances on speed and reactions, that's when you start to see that little dip. That's when I change from a boxer to a guy who comes forward and more of a volume puncher, because you're just not the same. You don't react the same way.
On the back foot, it's more tiring.
It's way more tiring. Your reactions aren't the same. You get hit a little bit more. You got to fight with a different kind of guard position. And Plant was still trying to be Plant of old with a younger, more exuberant, more physical guy, and it just did not work out.
What I'm curious about, Coach, what I thought as I was seeing is Rosendes fought Mexican. He was just putting on the physical pressure, throwing good combinations on the inside. Once he realized, oh, Plant's just going to use that lead hand, as long as I watch out for the hook, I can get inside and mix it up. What are your thoughts on his performance?
Look, I think he was impressive. He followed the main thing that I listened to and that I see during fights. I see that he listened. He stayed focused.
Yep.
He didn't try to do extra things. He did enough as he was winning, and I think that comes with training camp. His trainer Manny Robles listening to instructions in the corner. I think that helped a lot and made a big difference, because he was winning the fight. I thought he clearly won the fight. There was no way it's a split decision. I think he clearly won. But even then, he was still in control. He was still wasn't trying to do extra things. Wasn't risking punches that was not necessary. He was winning round by round, and that has to do with the instructions in his corner, the game plan, and he followed it perfectly. I give him a lot of credit for that, and not only him, but his cornerman also.
Yeah, Robert, he looked like the more experienced guy in there. I was really impressed.
100%. And Plant. I truly believe, like Paulie was saying, they could have easily done that fight with Charlo, and they would still been a good fight. But I think it was more because they did want Charlo. They wanted to see where Charlo was at, and weren't too sure about Charlo. So that's why they did a little stay busy fight, just so they could build it up a little bit bigger. But I think Plant might have taken it light. At 32, I think Plant, Paulie, Chris, you said he looked 32. I think he looked 37. The way he performed. He looked 37.
But you know what it is?
I think he took it lightly. He took it lightly. I think he could do much better. There's a rematch class. That's the first thing I would go after, the rematch class. I know he knows he could have done much better.
Coach, it's funny. I agree with you. He fought a little bit older than what you'd expect from Caleb Plant, but I think there's some factors here that come into play. You do get a little bit older, and especially for reaction fighters, they do age a little bit faster. But also money, a comfortable home life, happiness. I always use the term from Rush with Nicky Lauda: happiness is the enemy. Yeah. I think Caleb Plant, he puts on his game face in press conferences. He puts on, and he puts on for the cameras. But I think at home, he's got a stable, happy life. You can kind of see what he's matured as a man in that way. And it's hard to go through wars if you need to. It's hard to step into that war zone when you have something happy you want to go home to and you don't want to miss out on, And I think that's why when you get older, you have the term the Brits like to use that I like to use, the old manning it. You try to old man it because you have so much veteran skills, and Caleb Plant has those veteran skills, and you use that jab, and you kind of BS your way through here, you BS your way through there, and you sort of befuddle a guy just enough.
You steal rounds.
The fight's over, and he lost. Youth energy overcomes that, and that's what Rosendes brought. Rosendes put a pace on the wouldn't say old, because Caleb 32 is not old, but it's also, again, for a fighter who fights like that, it's old, And he put a pace on him that is going to make him uncomfortable. Now you got to decide, old Manning isn't going to win you tonight. You got to actually fight if you want to win this. And are you in a position to want to step into that zone, into that room where you got to fight for this? Are you ready to fight for this?
Are you ready?
Or are you stable in your life the way you're like, dude, I don't need this anymore, And that's sort of what happened as the fight started evolving. Rosendes grew more, and Caleb started fading more. And yes, Caleb has a reputation for fading late, of course.
Yes.
But he also, the little tricks that would usually work against the guy, maybe it didn't. When he got hurt in the 6th round, he's looking to throw that little short uppercut. He gets hit with a right hand over the top. That rocked him, and that really changed a lot of the momentum of the fight, And after that, Now you got a guy like Rosendo. Guys like that, they grow in confidence. Oh, I can hurt this guy. I can beat him. Now you showed up with that youth energy, that hunger. Now that hunger is only gonna grow. And if you're the veteran, you're like, oh man, I just gave this guy confidence by when he rocked me. Now it's like I gotta really deal with it. Am I ready to step into that room? And when we get to that point, we're not always ready to do it. Now Caleb has to go home, reassess. If he wants his rematch, you got to reassess that. You know, you got to say, am I ready to go into that room? Or could you still make the Charlo and Plant fight? And, I just thought, make Rosendo and McCombie in the co-main event. And that way you kind of keep building Rosendo, and he probably beats McCombie, but it's probably a good fight because McCombie is balls to the wall.
McCombie's fighting Pacheco next, though.
Is he?
Yeah.
They blew it.
They
blew it. What are you going to do? You blew it. All right.
But Champ, one word that you said that really stuck out to me was comfort.
Yeah.
Caleb Plant was super uncomfortable with what Rosendo was bringing to him. Rosendi's, like I said to Robert, he looked like the veteran there. He looked comfortable. I think it was like round 9. And listen, everybody knows Caleb Plant's the jab is what you're looking for. He parried the jab. Caleb threw a jab, and Rosendi's literally caught the elbow and just pushed it off. Like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, you're not hitting me with that. But the comfortability that I saw in that young guy was really impressive.
When I did my video for my page, I got a lot of kickback, a lot of pushback about, Caleb 32 is not old, this and that. There's a lot of moronic people at home that don't understand how this works.
Styles are different.
It's not just styles. It's also the kind of fighter you are. Age is faster, like we just said. You cannot tell me that the Plant that beat Uzcategui doesn't put this guy in his pocket no matter what version of Rosendo shows up. You can give me the best version of Rosendo. The Plant that beat Uzcategui puts him in his pocket, okay, and plays with him, okay? So yes, it is age, but it's a factor of age as well as comfortability. Like, is that a word, comfortability?
Comfortability.
Yeah, comfortability. And just a mindset where you've been through tough fights already. You're like, dude, I did not have all this success to continue to have these tough wars. That this Plant can be sort of overcome by that, which it happens to all of us. It does happen to all of us.
And I was thinking about the McCombie fight. In hindsight, we all praised him for fighting a different style, coming forward, being a puncher and aggressive that night. Maybe he had to. Maybe his legs were not there. Maybe he got rocked with that shot early. He couldn't move.
But it was impressive because he usually fades late. And that one, he actually came on, right?
Yeah, well, he didn't allow it to get late. When did he stop him? 8, 9?
Yeah.
That's usually when he starts to fall off. So, that one now in hindsight looks like, he was forced to do that because of where he is at this point of his career. And it worked out that night, didn't work out this time.
What I'm curious about, Robert, I want to ask you, a guy like Rosendo, Paulie says it all the time. You want to look good, you don't look too good. Rosendo's now 16-2. Physical, strong, in your face, got a lot of experience with this fight over Plant, Mexican style, in the idea of, even if I beat this guy, bring your lunch pail, it's going to be a tough fight. Is that a tough sell from the management perspective, from the promotional perspective? Are the top guys at 68 going to go, is this guy at 16-2 really worth it? Because it's going to be a long night. What's your thought on that, Robert?
I think the guy got what he trained for. I think Rosendo's got what he trained for. That was everybody's dream of one day becoming a champion. He already had 2 losses, so he had nothing to lose. He came with everything. Like I said, his team made a big impact in that win. Also, I think the kid has it all. Look, I'm watching it at home with my dad, my sister, my nieces, my wife. And they're all looking at the first thing they're thinking is, who's this kid? He's so good looking. He's the young Mario Lopez. I think the kid has what it takes to become a Mexican superstar. Because believe me, that's what everybody was thinking. My sister, my nieces, my daughter, everybody. Wow, this
He's got it.
Nobody knew who this kid was because they don't. He was. We knew who he was, but they didn't. But that's the first thing they said. So that's going to bring a lot of attention to him. That's going to make a big difference for him to popularity in Mexico. Man, he became a superstar.
Coach, that's why I think you can maybe build him. Maybe you could just make Plant and Charlo and put him in the co-main event in a fight that he tests him, but he probably still wins, and just make Plant and Charlo anyway.
I think that's the move. I think Plant and Charlo's next, and I think Rosendo should be allow him to be built a little bit. He's been in some really tough fights already. Give him another get back fight. No. You
can't make a co-main event and a get back fight. Enough with these. Or if you're gonna put him in a get back, you gotta put him lower. But then again, you lose his
Give him a fight. Give him a
a decently real fight.
But put him in the co-main event. He's gonna win and look good.
Yeah. All right. I'm with it.
It's got to be a fight. He looks.
But
he's
gotta
going to look good.
You know, put him with a guy who
there's something there.
stays in front of him.
He's only got 18 fights. It's crazy. 16-2 at that level. And
But he's
to your
got
point,
the
Jimmy.
ability, like the coach said.
Yeah, but to Jimmy's point, you say it's like you gonna want to fight this guy right now? 16-2. It's just like, and he's a new guy.
Mexican.
So
strong,
something
tough.
else
Yeah.
they brought up.
What about him and Lester?
I was just thinking that. I was just thinking that, man.
That's a nice
You
one.
took it
That
right
is a
out of my
nice
brain. I was
one. That is
going,
a nice
man,
one.
Lester.
A little matchmaker hat on.
But one of those.
But that's
he
not
gets-
that's not a gimme though.
That is no gimme.
That's actually a tough one.
That's a really tough fight. Also, you were saying about Plant having like a nice life. You know, he's got I think he's got 2 kids or one's on the way, whatever. But
This is the enemy.
Resendi said that though. He goes, he announced during fight week that he was going to have his first son. And that was something that focused him for the fight.
You know what's funny? It reminds me of something somebody told me this week. Was talking about Formula One. Again, I make the Formula One reference because it was a sport where guys, you know,
You can't slow down.
couldn't slow down. Especially back in the day, it was a sport where superstars were dying every
Yes.
year. You know, until they made
Super
it safer. And somebody, actually, I was hearing a story because I was talking about this Caleb Plant Resendiz fight, and I was hearing a story about Formula One in the old rivalry. There was Fernando Alonso and Michael Schumacher, and it was a race where Schumacher got overtaken late at this turn where it's only one car fits, and they asked Alonso why was he able to go to that turn, because if they both speed up at the same time, you're gonna crash.
Somebody
Are
has
you
to-
willing?
it's
It's a
like-
game
you're
of
basically
chicken.
playing chicken. Yeah,
Somebody's
yeah.
got to slow down in order there. And Alonso beat Schumacher there. He accelerated going to that spot, and Schumacher, you know, slowed down. And they asked him, "How were you able to do that?" And you know what Alonso's answer was? He said, he had just announced. He goes, he's having a kid. He goes, he's having his first kid. Just similar to Caleb Plant. It made me think. He goes, he's having his first kid soon. He goes, I know he wasn't going to be willing to go where I was willing to go. And that's what I'm talking about. And you see it in the movie Rush as well, which is a true story from.
But I'm saying with the opposite with Resendiz, because he's having his first
that's
kid
what I'm
now,
s-
and he's now dedicated,
Resend-
he's focused. Yeah,
Yeah,
because we talked about that, and I said that like
It goes one way or the other.
that family life.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
But also, he's Mexican. We said that. We said the
But
Mexican.
it's once he has the kid, who knows? Maybe it changes you. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's an interesting psychology, though. It really is, because I think Plant went through the toughest part of his career without all that, and now he's gone through the tough part of his career, and he sort of earned all this, right? So it's like, I didn't go through the tough part of my career to earn all this to then step back into that.
Resendiz is getting it now.
Resendiz is getting it because of this. So
completely different
you know,
situation.
we'll see. Well, you know, give Resendiz a couple of big paydays, and we'll see if he still has the same hunger. You know, it's all psychology.
But we love the idea that Resendiz, biggest win of his career, 168, looking like certainly a lot of fun right now with the mix and match we could do. For us in studio, Jimmy Smith alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Pauly Malignaggi, Coach Robert Garcia. Thank you so much for watching Boxing Scene Today. As it makes news, you'll see it here. Find out why millions are watching.